Well, hello YouTube, Louie here, and do you remember this guy? Yeah, that's Louis Rukeyser. When I was a young investor, I used to turn into his show Wall Street Week every week for years and years and years. I always enjoyed him, and I enjoyed his program. I believe he left us around 2006, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, I have his picture here because he is the one that I believe coined the phrase Bond Ghouls. All right. So if you'll recall, he would always talk about what happened in the week, normally in the stock market, and we'd have good weeks and we'd have bad weeks. But from time to time, when things were not so rosy, when doubt raised its head, he would talk about bonds. And the reason he would do that is that bonds move in an inverse relation to stocks. Well, at least they used to. All right. Before the government started meddling in the purchase of treasuries, bonds used to, without doubt and without question, move contrary to stocks. And the price of a bond, if stocks were going up, generally the price of bonds would go down. When stocks were going down, the economy was getting worse, for example, the price of bonds would go up. So, and of course, when a bond is going up, that means the interest rate that it pays is going down. And you could count on bonds to pay an appropriate amount of risk reward when that happened. Well, you know, enter the Federal Reserve right after the last crises, and they decided to start messing with the dynamic of the bond market. After that, we had a period of prolonged meddling in the bond market. We had the Fed buying bonds with the money they printed. We had the Fed buying the long end and selling the short end, or perhaps I have that reversed. But what they were doing is they were engaged in manipulating the bond market so that what old Louis would call the bond ghouls did not get their way. Whenever the bond ghouls didn't like what the government was peddling, and they started selling their bonds, the government was right there to buy those bonds with fictitious fiat money and drive those rates back down. So we never had the situation that we've had in the prior years, where you know, the bonds got to be an excessively high rate, pulling people out of the stock market. The government has been driving down the price of bonds for years now, so that you have to go into the stock market. So in essence, they have removed the shock absorber, right? First, they defiled the currency by printing more of it than they should have. And then they took that money and they bought bonds with it, further pushing the price of the yields down, pushing more people into the stock market. And we no longer have a regulating body over the stock market. And then now that Congress and the president no longer feel that there should be a cap on deficit spending, well, you know, just print more money. But when they're nervous and they want to run into bonds, well, the rates are very low. So what is the new shock absorber, right? What will keep the market corrected? The bond ghouls are not there anymore, right? There's no curb on printing or spending. The deficit is ballooning higher than it has ever been, at a rate higher than it has ever escalated. There's no control on spending anywhere. So what is the shock absorber that will keep everybody honest? Well, before you say nothing, think about this. Yes, of course, gold and silver. It's the one thing they haven't been able to manipulate. They have manipulated the paper market, or at least somebody has been manipulating the paper market, JP Morgan, criminally so, but they aren't able to manipulate gold and silver physical. right? There's only so much of it, but now that the stock market is fictitious, and the bond market is fictitious, and our currency is fictitious. In other words, there's no limit to it. There's no backing to it. There's no confidence in it, or at least there shouldn't be. What's left? Yeah, you got it. Gold and silver. Okay, that's why gold and silver is going up, guys. There's nowhere left to run. Well, maybe property and maybe tools and maybe, staples of different kinds, but gold and silver are taking the place of the bond market and will continue to do so to keep the out-of-control people that are running our governments in check. At least that's what I think it will do until they make it illegal. Talk to you later.